The rental market is deteriorating very quickly, and in this video, you'll learn every single detail you need to know if you have a rental property, if you're a renter and you're looking to negotiate, or you're even looking to consider buying an investment property in today's market. Here I've got a special guest with us, Blakely. Blakely, let's jump into the data real quickly. What is so different today from what happened, the last go around?
We are back into the accidental landlord world.
What does that mean?
Interest rates have gone up. The mass COVID migration, I feel, is over. And we've had several owners who have been called back to work in places like Connecticut, New York, Texas, California, etc., who bought their dream home with the idea of working remote and have been called back into the office, and they're forced to rent. The homeowners who can't sell, maybe they bought at the height of their beginning of, and they overpaid for those homes at the time because of the mass exodus to Florida. They're now in a position where they're having problems moving them, and they're sitting on empty homes for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Can't sell them. Well, do I lose $3,000 a month for a mortgage payment, or do I lose $800 a month and rent it out and take an $800 a month loss? So that's what I'm seeing right now.
So you're seeing a lot of owners unable to sell their house because the market's changed drastically, and then they turn them into rentals.
Yes, we have. Well, and it's kind of crazy because we even have long-term owners who are like, I just got to get out of this, this real estate while I can. They're kicking good tenants out. They're sitting on an empty property for 6 months because let's be honest, realtors are they're salespeople, or realtors, and they're promising these owners, the moon. Owners kick out good tenants, and then they've had 6 months of vacancy, turn cost, prep cost, paint cost, and then they come crawling back and my house won't sell. I need to re-rent it. Well, your tenants that were paying $2,400 a month, and now the comps are $2,100 a month.
Wow. It's dropping that fast?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we went up almost 30% during, so, it was all fat, it was all gravy, all icing. And now it's, there's a correction.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dig into that correction. It sounds like sellers are sort of panicking now. They're panic selling. They're kicking their tenants out to try to get out of the market as fast as possible, because we can all see the data, especially here in Florida. It's pretty clear where the direction we're headed into. So this is the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors MLS rental market data. This is the number of active listings across our city. There's 1,817. Now, back in the day, during the 2020 through 2022, Blakely, what did it look like? Were there any rentals available?
I mean, very few. I think vacancy was 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
Now you're closer to 10%, 8 to 10% vacancies. Now, and I like how your slide here says does not tell the real story. Let's be transparent here. That's MLS data.
Yes.
Now, I've been in the property management world for 20 years. Half of my friends who own property management companies don't put their rental listings in MLS. So all those vacancies and all those available properties are not reflected. And then you factor in the do-it-yourself landlords that are also not in the MLS data. So that number is much higher.
Yeah. We were going through some numbers before this call, and, self-managed is 70 to 75% and professionally managed is 25 to 30%. So the inventory could easily be, double or even triple that. This also doesn't include all the multifamily apartment listings that are competing with the single family. We'll dig into that data, so hang on here. Now, if you're seeing a rent decline in your market, go ahead and drop a comment and share with us what market you're in and how much rent prices have come down. But here's the thing, the vast majority of single family rentals are owned by individual investors, right? These are called mom and pop landlords who manage the property themselves to reduce costs, right? They don't want to pay a property manager the 8 to 10%, whatever it is, for them to go get the tenant for them and manage the day-to-day activities, making sure the lawn is mowed, making sure the repairs are getting done, if the refrigerator breaks down. Now, these larger portfolios, typically 10 plus properties, they're the ones that use the professional property management very commonly, because it makes sense from economies of scale perspective. Now, institutional ownership, these are like the big players, American Homes for Rent, Progress Homes, Invitation Homes, where it's owned, the property management is owned by those large firms themselves, and those are less than 5% of the market. The estimates are actually about 3 to 4% of the market is now owned by institutional investors. So we saw them gobble up tons of properties, Blakely, especially here in Jacksonville. They're buying 40 to 50 homes. Each one of those institutions, between 2012 all the way up to 2022, when they kind of looked at the numbers and said, this doesn't make any sense anymore. And once rates started going up, the model stopped making sense. But this was a national rent study, Blakely. I want to dig into this. Rents are coming down. So we're already down 3 to 4% since August 2022 on a national level. The duration of the decline is 20 to 22 months. The local standout, the one that's getting hit the most, is Austin, Texas. It is overbuilt multifamily. Tons of people relocating during the 2020 to 2022 years. And the ongoing pressure is multifamily overbuilding with amazing amenities, but the rent amounts are just so high that people can't afford it. A lot of people are complaining about that. Another study showed a 6% decline since 2022. Again, new construction is being a big issue. The places like Austin, Tampa, Nashville are seeing the biggest drops. And what's interesting is that in the north, the rents are actually rising, right? Because people are returning back to where they came from, Baltimore, Buffalo, Providence, in the northeast. What are you seeing on the ground, Blakely, with your property management division in terms of how fast rents are dropping and how much?
So I would say 95% of our inventory is small mom and pop, one to three units, investors. I myself own several properties. I just renewed 3 of mine. They have been renting for close to $2,200 a month each for the last 3 years. And I just renewed all of them at $1,950.
Wow.
Because, that's where the market's at. We're getting a lot of, first and foremost, there's a handful of really good property management companies in Northeast Florida. I would like to consider us one of them. That being said, and you run into this, I'm sure, in your world as well on sales, there's a lot of property managers that promise these owners the price point they want to hit. They call, they're like, Hey, John, I need my mortgage and taxes and insurance is $2,800. I need $2,800. I can't lose my property. And they promise them the world. They get them to sign the contract. They lock them in. But, that same owner called us and we're like, yeah, your comps are 2,300. We're not going to blow smoke or lie to you to get your business. We're going to be dead honest. This is what it's going to take. And then sure enough, we track all the lost deals that we don't get.
Of course.
And they're all leasing for our comp, what we've told the people our comps were. So they trusted these other companies. They list them at their $2,800 a month. They sit on it for 120 days and then end up leasing it to what, we could have leased it for within 30 days. So we're seeing prices come down. We're really educating owners up front. Like, I feel like it's short-term pain for long-term gain. If you have the money for repairs and you have the money for the mortgage payment, and you can tough out the next 3 years, 4 years, 10 years from now, you're going to be gold, right? But it's not a short-term play. It's not build to rent, buy a house and cash flow $200, $300 a month. Those days are gone. Put your money in T-bills and, make 4.75% or hard money loan or, whatever it is. So the ones who are really hurting, single family is definitely better than multi. We do a lot of condos.
Oh,
these owners that are just between their condo fees, their insurance, their taxes. Yes. Let's just say the Villa Medici's, the Gardens of Bridgehampton, like all these, the Peninsula downtown on the river. They're competing with new fancy multifamily that's offering 2 months, 3 months free rent, no security deposit, no application fees. Pretty much move in at $0, get 3 months free and a big screen TV and call it a day, right? So those condo owners on the rent side are getting crushed.
That is depressing. Yeah. And so the example you gave, even 2,400 to 2,100, I mean, that's that's more than 10% decline in rents just in the last year. And are you seeing them continue to drop or you think they're going to stabilize soon?
I actually think we've stabilized on the drop. The thing is the owners don't understand. They said, 2 years you rented this house for me in 14 days at $2,800, and now you're telling me it's going to take me 45 days at $2,500 or $2,400. Yeah, because there's look at the mass amount of sales inventory that can't sell right now.
Yes,
and those owners, again, in their minds, instead of losing $3,000 a month on a mortgage, they're going to lose $500 or $600. Being upside down and renting it out. And so for them, it's, how long will it last? I don't know. I mean, it's, I don't know how many months you can write $400 and $500 checks.
Yeah.
Properties bought in the last 4 years.
Before they just decide to short sale it. if they have no equity and things like that. So here's a question for the audience. Do you think rent prices in your area will go up or down in the next 12 months? Drop your guess in the comments. I think personally, Blakely, we're going to continue to see rents drop. And I'll share with you why I think that is based on the multifamily construction pipeline that we have locally. And so a lot of you in your market, you want to figure out, how many active inventory, how much active inventory is there for sale? And how many of those will actually turn into a rental? How many are listed for rent but aren't even listed on MLS, which could be 2 to 3 times more? And you want to see what it's competing with new construction. So that's the biggest issue that we see here locally is the new construction. The builders just overbuilt. They thought that the demand that we were having from the relocations would continue basically forever, I guess, is what their assumption was. So they just completely blew it out of the water with the number of housing starts. And so here, and Tony will edit this video and I'll show a video here, but there's a guy dancing on Beach Boulevard for these new apartments, and it's the Presidium is what it's called. And they're offering 3 months free rent. Same exact thing that you were talking about, Blakely, right? Like just walk in the door, sign a lease, get them in there just to fill bodies to these units. And what's worse about it is on Hodges and Butler, there's another apartment complex that's coming. It's another 400 units and it's in construction. And it's who do they think they're going to rent to at these crazy $2,800 a month price for a 3-2 condo, basically a, type of unit. It's out of control. I mean, the amenities are beautiful. It's in a good location, but people don't make that type of money from wages here to be able to support those type of payments. So these are the issues that we're seeing right now. Relocation slowdown, 80% since the peak, overbuilding multifamily. We're having an affordability crisis. Again, the wages here have not kept up with the price growth of I see your head shaking up and down, right? The wages have not kept up at all with the rent amounts, right? And I was a landlord too.
3 times income is typically the standard requirement for approval on a rental.
So, I mean, if it's $3,000 rent, I mean, you're going to have to make $9,000 a month. I mean, there's not many people in Jacksonville who make $9,000. I think the median family income is $65,000 for Jacksonville. So, there is an affordability crisis here. And again, we referenced this, the short sales, people aren't able to sell their house. They have no equity in it. They can't pay the transaction fees to the real estate agent. So they decide to rent it out instead to try to pray that the market's going to get better, even though we're not seeing any real relief right now on interest rate side. So overbuilding is the number one factor that I see. Blakely, I'd love to hear your opinion if you see the same thing, but there were 7,600 multifamily units added in the last 12 months in Jacksonville. 11,000 units are under construction. So these are ones that already broke ground. And once they break ground, they have to finish the job because the bank finance isn't in place. And due to this, the multifamily housing starts have now dropped 61% since the peak because they recognize, hey, we need to slow down. The relocations here are not happening. And the issue is, Florida has a negative birth rate. So there's more people dying than being born in Florida. So the only way our state population grows is from people migrating here. And so the projects are canceling and they're stalling out.
So I had an owner. We have a multi-plan community. People here locally. If you're not locally, you'll understand. It's a beautifully planned community with $1.82 million homes on a crystal clear lagoon here in Florida, in Northeast Florida. It's called Beach Walk.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've had owners with homes in Beach Walk, and we'll lease them if they're priced right. Like we are leasing monsters. We have in-person agents. We're very tech driven, but personal. We have actual people show homes, which is rare now. But we had an owner say, well, we said, well, there's 2 brand new complexes in Beach Walk. And like, well, that's not comparison. We're single family. And I said, well, let's just play devil's advocate for a minute. You're a family of 3. Let's say you're a family of 3. And you want to rent a $3,000 home in Beach Walk, and you got to pay first month security deposit, your moving fees, pet fees, whatever it may be. So we're off the bat. Let's just say $7,000, right? Same amenities, same school district, same grocery stores. Or you can move to a luxury community with your family for 13 months or 14 months, save $6,000, and see how the market shakes out. Have a state-of-the-art fitness center, have a state-of-the-art pool, all these amenities. I'm sorry, but as a family guy, if I can save my family $6,000 to $8,000 for a year to live in an apartment complex a block over, that pays for a couple pretty nice vacations or other investments for my family while I see what happens with the market. So people, when they say, oh, multifamily is not a competing product, I disagree.
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
For that kind of savings, it's a competing product.
Absolutely, it's a competing property. And like you mentioned, the amenities are the same or better, on these new construction communities. So here's the chart to summarize. Each area is definitely different around the country. So you want to figure out what's going on in your market. So this is the occupancy right now. So it fell from 94.5% nationally down to 90 to 92%. Blakely, almost exactly what you said. Vacancy is up to 10 to 13%, up from 6 to 7%. So, 10% to 13% of their units are not currently filled, and they have to fill them. That's why they're giving those, 3 months free rent, 2 months free rent. Hey, walk in. New deliveries, pipeline change, the starts are down, and obviously asking rents are starting to decrease because the owners are finally starting to realize that the market is actually different than it was just a few years ago. One of the things, Blakely, that we talk about a lot is this affordability crisis and opportunity cost. So if you're going to go out there and buy a home in 2025, it costs, according to the data, 43% more than renting. Are you seeing an increase in the number of people who want to rent because they can't buy?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I rented a home in a neighborhood by Palencia, Kensington, and they rented the house and they said, this house would have cost me $800 more a month to buy. And to rent. Would the owner be interested in, selling this? I'm the owner of that house, so no. But yeah, we definitely are seeing that. For us, it's really just an inventory. It's an inventory problem right now. And I've been here before. I went through this before because we've been in business 21 years. So I've seen this before. It's like patterns definitely repeat themselves, although there's different reasons this time. But we've been here before.
Yeah, and there's things that are actually worse this time around than last time. So last time, right, you had mentioned the strippers buying 3 houses and things like that. Now we have occupancy fraud, which the Fed has come out and basically said that 33% of people who purchased properties from 2020 to 2023, 33% of them said that they were going to occupy it as a primary, and they didn't. They turned it into a rental. Do you believe that? That number sounds right to you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even now we get owners who call us upset because they're being notified by the county that they've lost their homestead.
Really? Like, well, how does the county find out about that?
No clue. No clue.
Interesting.
Someone reports them, or I know that some of the counties in Northeast Florida, I know that in St. Johns County at one point in time, like 65% of all Airbnbs were unregistered.
Wow.
And they deployed a software that scraped a lot of the vacation rental listing websites to catch people and put them in compliance. But it wouldn't be hard for the county to implement some type of a software program that literally just scrapes Zillow. And if they see it for rent, they're like, okay, this owner's not living there anymore, right? So they lose their homestead.
Yeah, and the problem is when these are rental properties, they're more likely to walk away from them in the case of a decline than if it was a primary home, right? Because people have to have a place to live, but they don't have to have a rental. So this is just like the risk is way higher than it's being let on. And that's on top of all the FHA and VA foreclosures that didn't happen over the last 4 years. There's a huge backlog, over 15% delinquency that are coming to the market by the end of this year, starting to trickle into the market. Foreclosures are starting to triple and then triple again from there, from what we had previously, just because we have all of this backlog of foreclosures that need to be processed through. If you think about VA and FHA, it's only 3.5% down for FHA and 0% down for VA. So if they're underwater, if they bought in the last 2 to 3 years, and those, that inventory will come onto the market, or they'll try to rent these things, right, to catch up on their payments if they can. Go ahead, Blakely. You got something?
If it's bad enough, I mean, I know owners that their mortgage payment is $3,600 and they can go 2 doors down on the exact same floor plan and rent it for $29.
Yeah. So are the tenants renegotiating all their leases when they renew?
The smart ones are. Yeah.
The smart ones are.
We literally got an email on Friday of last week. See, I'm proactive. We try and be proactive with owners, and we're like, listen, we're not going to just try and give away owners money. Obviously, every time a renewal is up, we run a CMA. We run every single listing is personal. We don't want to leave money on the table for the owners. We do a new CMA. None of them are coming back at what they rented for, a year or two ago. So our suggestion in that case to the owner is that if you're going to raise it very incrementally. We're talking $25, right? Because some of these comps that are coming back are $250 less.
Correct.
But we got an email last week from a tenant who literally just scrolled Zillow and found 2 or 3 homes in like a 5-block area of her Silverleaf community, and said, "Hey, all these new ones are renting for this price, and they're offering these incentives.
Yep.
Can you guys, keep my rent the same or drop it $100, whatever it was?" So Yeah, we're definitely seeing that.
Ouch, that definitely hurts. And here's another thing on the opportunity cost is here's the payment, right? So this is the payment tracker for the period of time. So you can see that the payment went all the way from like 1,500, back in '08. Like now it's $2,800 a month. This is why I'm saying it's worse. Like the payments are just crazy. I mean, yes, we had inflation and the Fed printed, 30% of plus of the money supply over this period, but it's such an unsustainable amount because the wages haven't kept up. And now the population is in debt. So, I mean, Blakely, when you're seeing these tenants come through, it's the credit quality like perfect. They have tons of cash to put down, or they cash strapped and they are loaded up with debt. What does that look like?
No, I mean, we're pretty stringent with our qualifications. I mean, that's one of the keys to our success is, I've always joked with my owners, one of the toughest jobs is just finding a good tenant. But we're turning down a lot more applications.
Yeah. More
denials. Because they're not meeting the criteria. We even have, talked to, our council about actually dropping that income requirement to 2.5 times.
Brutal. Just to make it work.
Try and get more people.
More risk.
That was the norm between 2008 and 2012, roughly. It was 2.5 times the income. But it slowly crept up that there's no set amount through every company, but 3 times has been pretty much the industry norm when you factor in their debt service and stuff like that. But we've talked about actually lowering it to fill units.
To fill units. Wow. So yeah, monthly payments 90% increase in 5 years. So again, you can see even just 2020, 1,500 down to up to 2,800. So this is just another way of looking at the same data, which is mind-boggling. So there's something called the 28% rule. So the rent, the amount of payment to purchase a property, the payment that you must pay is going to be 28% of your income. Okay. So this, you can see the formula there. Estimated median U.S. house purchase by the median buyer front end ratio. So it should be, according to the 28% rule, a payment of $2,019. Now it's $2,860 because we saw the interest rates move up. So we would need to see a drop on the payment side of $841 to match this 28% rule, right? You don't want to be spending your entire income on your rent or on your payment. And so this is something that we see out there. This is for payment. This isn't for rent, but it's a really good indicator that, hey, homes are overpriced and rents, it's cheaper to rent. And so a lot of people are going to prefer to rent than to buy at this point in the market cycle. So what are tenants doing? We just talked about that, renegotiating their leases. They're asking for 3 months rent, which is crazy to me. Are your owners okay with giving up, these mom and pops, like 1 to 3 months free rent to get?
I've always viewed free rent as a gimmick. Okay. People want cheaper rent. So if you're going to do a month free, then take it over your 12-month lease or your 13-month lease and just lower the monthly rent payment. That's effectively what we're doing. But, just even I think outside of taxes and insurance, the biggest expense for real estate investors is vacancy.
Yeah.
So if you have to, drop your rent, obviously get a good CMA, whether it's your realtor or your property manager, or you just do your own stuff on like Rentometer, for example, is a free site, Rentometer, to do comps. Just do your own comps. But if it costs you $100 to keep that tenant in place, man, that's a lot cheaper than a turn cost and 2 months or 3 months of vacancy. We're doing everything we can to keep tenants in place.
Love it. So the power is with the tenants now, and we think that will level off over time. So what are you doing differently to help landlords in this market versus the prior market that was super hot? What is, like, if you had to think of one thing that you do differently?
We're being brutally honest with them first and foremost. Like, right. This is the comp. This is the price. Well, I want $400 more a month. Okay, well, there's a house 5 doors down that's 3 years newer with new floor and new paint. What makes your house special? We're just educating these owners, okay?
Yeah.
And we're also being very aggressive. So a lot of companies have gone away from in-person showings. I'm all about AI. I'm all about technology. But I do think the differentiator moving forward, I think the John and the Blakeleys are going to get sick of all the AI, and all the companies are going to start sounding alike each other. And I think you're going to need that personal hand touch and personal service. So we have high technology, but we also have local, live, in-person agents. So what we're doing differently is we're educating owners on the market, and let's be aggressive. We have a very set, if you're not getting, at least 5 to 6 leads a week, You're priced too high. I mean, it's similar to real
Right.
estate.
It's the common sense, but the sellers just don't seem to capitulate as fast as you would think, because is it just like they have a mental block? They just can't believe it, or
I
they don't
think that's
trust you, or what is it? They're just
Yeah, I think
scared.
that's part of it. And then you jump on Zillow and look at some of the photos. I mean, it's almost your house when you're renting your house. It's almost like a dating profile, right? First impression. You got to get them to click. You got to get them to inquire. You got to get them to tour. You got to, we're doing video tours and 3D
Yes.
tours and in-person showings. You're being aggressive. Do the fresh paint. Make sure the carpets are clean. Throw some fresh mulch down. Give it some curb appeal. You want that house to stand out, but be aggressive on pricing. I listed a home in an area by that we're familiar with called Kensington by Palencia,
Yep.
and it was my own personal home, and my stuff was handled just like all of our investor stuff. And I told my leasing team, $100 a week reduction until
Yep.
it's leased, and at least in 21 days
Per week. Think
per
of
week.
that. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
But again, if you do the math on the vacancy cost, right? Owners they want to pound you over that extra $200 a month, and I understand it's a lot of money, right? But if you sit empty on that property for 5 weeks, your $200 a month is gone.
Yeah.
So let's get it leased. Let's get them in there,
Get
and
it
then,
right away.
and then keep them happy, and a lot of not to go down a bunny trail, but a lot of we have a 72% renewal rate, but there's two reasons for non-renewals, not with us, but with most companies. And that's obviously relocation, either upsizing, downsizing, family, job, relocating, whatever. And then the number two reason for non-renewal is whether it's an individual owner or a property manager is lack of repair.
Wow.
So while you're trying to get 3 bids for your AC and your tenant's cooking in 90-degree heat for 10 days with 2 small kids,
Right.
you think they're going to renew their lease with you?
Right.
Just fix the AC. So keep them happy. Keep your existing tenants
The
happy.
tenants happy. Yeah, treat them like royalty, and that's been the opposite of the mentality of most people over the last few years. So I'm happy to see the tenants get their power back. But if you own real estate right now, what should you do? If you have a investment property and you're looking at the numbers, what should you do? I'll tell you, Blakely, what I did. What I did with my portfolio. And so let me actually go back here real quick. Tony, just cut that part out. So if you own real estate and you're an investor, what should you do, Blakely? Should you try to sell it, or should you just keep the tenant in place and ride it out? I mean, at this point, you're past the peak.
I wouldn't sell it. I would keep the tenant in place. I mean, if you're going to sell the property, I mean, you could be out with your sales commissions, with your turn cost, prep cost, vacancy. I mean, you may be out 20, 30 grand. It may be more financially advantageous for you to take that $200 or $300 loss for 3 years, and let things calm down and the market kind of clean up a little bit and then sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually have an investment model if you guys want to look at that. And so what's the issue you run across when trying to sell your rentals if they haven't sold? All right, so we already dealt with that. So I'll, Tony, take that part out as well. We can skip this one. Okay, so Blakely, this is really interesting, right? Because we've seen taxes go up, right? Non-primary homes, no homestead. Insurance has gone up 70% in the last 5 years. The repair costs have skyrocketed to get even
30% roughly repair cost.
30% on the repair cost. Yeah, even to get somebody to go to your house, they charge you like $200 just to drive a mile down the street. It's outrageous.
The big misconception here is that, so when COVID hit, all the vendors, and I love our vendors, but let's talk about AC, plumbing, electrical, they all use COVID and supply as the reason to raise their rates 25 or 30%, right? But when everything went back to normal, do you think those rates came back down? Absolutely not, And we get these owners who are like, well, I want 2 quotes. I want 3 quotes. We don't do that. We have what we consider the best vendors in the market. And if a vendor, an AC vendor, a plumbing vendor is driving around to 7 or 8 properties a day just doing quotes, labor, insurance, gas, vehicle lease, etc., they make no money.
Yep.
The days of the free quotes are almost gone.
That's right. Yeah, the service call fees are sometimes more expensive than the actual fix itself, which is wild.
And I agree with the vendors, by the way.
Yeah.
Because they get quoted to death with no jobs, and they're going to be out of business pretty quickly.
Yeah, you can't run around without any income coming in. So this is an interesting thing. So investor purchases are down 62.8% from the peak. So this is tracked by Redfin. So this is from Q2 of 2021 to Q1 2025. Housing markets with biggest drop in investor purchases, Jacksonville. So obviously we're seeing rents coming down. The property prices have come up, more than 50% in just a few years. So the numbers no longer make sense on paper, especially when we just talked about, taxes, insurance, repairs, all this stuff. It doesn't make sense to own a property if you didn't lock in your low rate, or you bought, in the last 2 to 3 years, they're underwater significantly. Blakely, you're mentioning up to $800 a month in some situations that people are losing, by having it rented out. And obviously if they're hiring a professional property manager too, they're paying out there too. It's brutal out there. Actually, I'm surprised it's not down more than 62.8%, because I'm also seeing issues with Airbnbs, right? Airbnbs are starting to hit vacant. Everybody thought it was sexy on Instagram to go have an Airbnb and manage it from home. It's something they could do from home. And now they're paying the price from buying, at these crazy prices. So Blakely, leave us with this. What's the advice for single family rental owners today? What should they do because of the market deteriorating and, potentially deteriorating a lot more into the future, as well as we see this pipeline of multifamily come on the market?
I think that they have to obviously treat the tenants like gold, offer some kind of a move-in incentive, be more pet friendly. We get so many owners and they're like, I don't want pets in my house. Why? Respectfully, I'm a dad, right? And when my son was 3, he did a lot more damage than a Chihuahua would do, right? So, be more open to, and then we have owners who say, I don't want roommates. You have to be more open and more flexible. I tell people all the time regarding the pets, 80% of American homes have a pet.
Wow.
So you're literally going to take 80% of the market's eyes off of your property by not allowing pets? That's bonkers to me. Making sure that you follow, whether you're doing it yourself or you're working with a professional company, follow the advice. If they're telling you it needs fresh paint, if they're telling you some sod needs replaced, if they're telling you it needs new mulch, if they're telling you the driveway needs pressure washed, you may think, oh, I can't afford $800, but 2 weeks or a week and a half of vacancy would have
more than that.
Yeah, would have covered that. So get your property in good shape. Doesn't need to be brand new or perfect, but some people want to feel proud of what they rent. That's their home. They're going to be raising their kids in there. They're going to be celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. They're going to want to have their in-laws over for barbecues. They want to be proud of where they live. So make it presentable for them. Make it a home that they're proud of. And by the way, they'll take better care of it.
Amen. That's really good advice. So I'll tell you, Blakely, why I sold my rentals, right? So I had over 200 plus units, multifamily and single family properties, and I underwrote every individual property. So I think every property is different. It's unique in terms of its age, its condition, its location, everything like that. But the one thing in common with all of my properties I sold between 2022 and 2024, once I saw the Fed was raising rates in March 2022, that spooked me, and I knew that when rates go up, prices come down, and I saw the amount of building that was going around my community. So I sold literally everything. The only house I have left is my primary home, and that was my full business, was having these rentals and having all them and doing flips and stuff like that. My return on equity was, guess what my return on equity was on my rentals, Blakely?
30%.
3%. I had built so much equity up in the home, and the cash flow was so low because it was crazy. When I talk about return on equity, it's the equity sitting in the home at the time of market value, not when of purchase. So just to be clear on that. Yeah, that's why it's different. But 3% is not enough, right? I can go buy a treasury and get 5%, no risk. So why in the world would I hold my rental if I didn't think there would be long-term appreciation in my market? It's definitely not going to come from cash flow. And things keep breaking, right? Like one AC unit broken would erase the cash flow for the entire year, or one turn for the year would erase all the cash flow. It wasn't worth it. So I sold them all and I turned it into a private lending fund for agents to do fix and flips. And that has taken off and been so much more profitable. I actually now get 15 to 20% interest on my fix and flips, which is just a phenomenal return versus doing that. So I'm a fan of actually selling rentals. Right now, you are past the peak, as Blakely said. It's like at this point, you're past the peak. You're kind of locked in, or else you're going to be chasing the market down for the next couple of months. It might make sense to hold on if it cash flows and it makes sense, and it's in pretty good condition. Estimate the repairs, right? Going into the future. Estimate in the area, like how much new construction is around me that's going to compete with this, because not every area is going to drop 10 to 15%, right? It's usually the areas where they're overbuilding like crazy and the demand is less, right? Because you look at rentals in like Neptune Beach, There's nowhere left to build. Those rent right away. Those are high demand areas with people who are wealthy that will buy. So each property is completely different. If you want to send your property to either me or Blakely, we can take a look at it. Blakely's got a tremendous team over there. I think you have like what, 800 units under management or something like that.
We just crossed 1,000.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah, just crossed 1,000. And yeah, I mean, great school districts. I have a property that I'm breaking even on per month, but I'm not really. I mean, if you factor in historical appreciation, 3%, and then the tenant's paying down almost $400 of principal a month for me as well. So,
right.
While I'm not putting cash in my pocket every month, it is definitely adding value.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to underwrite the deal, I have an underwriting model. I can send it to you. If you comment and you email me, my email's down in the description of the video. Let me know. Subscribe to my Substack, and I'll go ahead and send you an underwriting model that you can take a look at. I'm happy to take a look at it with you. I know Blakely is as well. So Blakely, this was awesome. Thank you for today.
Yeah.
And
we do no sales here. We're only
sales.
We're only rentals 24/7, 365, rentals. We live and breathe it. So
I love it. I love it. So we do sales over here, primarily like 99% of sales. My company does about 1,800 transactions per year on the sales side. So if you need help selling your home, or if you're around the country looking for a top agent to help you, right? 80% of agents are horrible. They don't know what they're doing. They sell one transaction a year. Don't get stuck with them. If you need to get in touch with one of the top people around the country, even if you're not in Florida, let me know. I have a huge network across the country because I've been in this industry for quite some time. Blakely, thank you. You're a gentleman and a scholar. See you next time.